Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. In this video, I just want to show you what a public port is and why it's a bad idea to make database ports public. So essentially, a public port is a port that appears on the internet side. This makes it accessible to the public. And having certain ports public is necessary for a functioning website. For example, HTTP running on port 80 or HTTPS running on port 443. We need those ports open to the public so the user can get the files that are being served up on those ports, so the website HTML. However, as making a port public allows anyone to connect to it, exposing a database port publicly is usually not a good idea. So a single bug in the database or a weak password can allow someone to access and query the database. So for example here, you would just have to switch host with whatever IP address that server is running on. So, that's not a valid IP address, but you just switch it in here, and then you could just try all sorts of different passwords and see if you connect. And on some Linux distributions, port 5432, which is the default Postgres port, will be open after installing Postgres. Port 3306, the default MySQL port, will be open after installing MySQL, and things like that. So users can just attempt to access these ports, attempt to breach the database, maybe try out some passwords, see if they can break in. So it's generally a good idea to restrict or block access to these database ports so that they're not publicly accessible. And I'm going to switch over to a VPS right here. And one way to block or restrict access to a port is to use a firewall. And so a firewall is a network security device that monitors and controls network traffic. Specifically, firewalls are configured to follow a set of rules. And Linux provides us with iptables, which you might have heard before, which is a utility command to manage firewalls. So as a demonstration, say that I have port 5432 open on here because I just downloaded or installed Postgres, and that's the port it's running on. What we could do is we could use iptables to block that Postgres port. And we could do that with this command right here. So this command up here. And so what this does is it tells our server to drop any incoming packets to port 5432. So this -t right here specifies the table, which is, if you don't know anything about IP tables, essentially IP tables consist of tables, and one of these tables is called filter, and it is the default table, and it's used for packet filtering. So you have different tables that have different functionalities. And then we also have in IP tables things called rules. And a rule is essentially a condition placed on incoming packets. And -a, what it does is it appends the rule to the end of the chain. So basically a chain is a collection of rules. And then we specify input right here, which specifies that this rule is for incoming packets, or packets going to our server. Then we specify the protocol as TCP, as it would be a TCP connection to this port. And then we specify dport, which is the destination port. And then -j is the action we want to do, or the action to take place if the packet matches the rule. And drop makes the connection appear to be unoccupied. So if a user tries to connect to this port, say they're trying to log in to access our database, it will just appear that the port is unoccupied. So if we run this command, we can then list the firewall rules using the following command. So we've added that rule. Now we can use this one. So our filter table, -l, says list the rules in the provided chain, and line numbers prints the line numbers of the rules. If we run this, we can see right here, we have a rule, which is to drop from whatever source to our Postgres port 5432. So now any incoming connections to port 5432 will be dropped. And actually, and one more thing I just want to go over is we might want to whitelist a specific IP. So maybe we want our own IP address to be able to access our server still, because it's just useful to query it. And so we can do that also using IP tables. And what we would do is we would just need to make sure that we place this rule above our other rule where we drop packets. But so the order of rules matters, and we would need to make sure that this rule comes before the drop rule. So essentially what this does is for destination port 5432, we will allow anything from this IP address. So this XXXX will be the IP address that you want to allow. And if this rule is placed above this one, so essentially first we'll check if this is allowed, and if it is, we're good. If not, it'll go to the next rule where we will drop every packet. But that's all I wanted to show you. So if you have a database running up online on your own server, consider blocking that port so people can't just try and access it and try and, query your database or just do any kind of bad thing. But that's all I wanted to show you. If you like this video, consider checking out my courses. I got some cool stuff like this linked in the description. Also check out my Chrome extension called Whitceptor. You'll probably find it pretty cool. But besides that, I want to thank you for liking and subscribing, and I hope to see you next one. Have a good one.